Okay, right, all right. I must have clicked the wrong button. Good afternoon, everyone. I think we are live. I hope that we are live. But anyway, my name is Petra Dieter from Victim to Hero Institute, and welcome to a Father's Day celebrations. Thank you for joining us today. Happy Father's Day. I know that a lot of you probably are feeling, I mean, yeah, probably really having a rough time being a father, and yet probably a lot of you are not able to get to see your children, and possibly even if you do get to see your children, the children are probably not um, not your children, right? They behave a little bit differently. They're probably cold and defiant, and I get it. I do get it. And so anyway, today we're gonna have a special event for you guys. And today we have with us Kevin, who used to be an alienated father who has now reunited with his children. And so we want to just share this story with you guys because it is a story of hope and the challenges that he has gone through, the length that he has gone through in order to get his children back. So there's hope, you guys. It's very much possible, and that's why we are here to share these stories. We were supposed to have actually another father, but something came up. So anyway, if any of you guys, any father that are watching and want to share your story, even even if you haven't got a chance to reunite with your children, I'm interested in probably bring one of you guys on as well, and let's have an impromptu conversation a little bit later on. So if you want to jump on the call and share your story, like, let me know the comments in the chat room so that we know to bring you on. Okay, and hi, Mary. Mary's calling in from Hamilton in Ontario, Canada. Thank you so much, Mary. Thank you for being here. And for everyone else, please like this video, please share it so that more people can come. I know that sometimes you may not want to share this on your own Facebook page, but maybe share it in other groups that you are in. That would help a lot because we want to make sure that the information that we created can the information that we are sharing is getting to more people so that more people can use this. So anyway, Kevin, hi, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so Kevin, you look a little bit red. What's going on today? I know I kind of have a hint of what's going on. So let's talk about that first.
I actually was at the vegan festival. I live in Memphis, Tennessee, and my daughter and I volunteered today to go to the vegan festival and help spread information and awareness about organ and tissue donation. So she needed the volunteer hours for school. She's in the honors program. She's 15. And so we spent several hours sitting out in the sun, reading and meeting people and passing out information about organ and tissue donation, which is a very nice way of spending Father's Day, considering there were some Father's Days that there was no communication.
So this was an alienated daughter who is now out there with you on Father's Day, volunteering, doing community things, and spending time with you. Isn't that magical?
Yes, it's been a long, long road, and I don't know how far back and how much we're going to talk about, but I just want to say on the front end that I know my experience may be different than your experience, but I'm just sharing my experience and my opinion, and my experience is pretty extreme and kind of crazy and shocking, I think, in many ways, but and even still, my experience mirrors so many other people's experiences as far as the names are changed, or the names may be different, but the behavior and the experiences unfortunately are almost textbook. So
Yeah, I totally agree. Unfortunately, the stories are almost identical. Like, we talk to so many parents now, and yeah, over and over. And the thing is, when you first discovered this thing that you experienced, you thought that you're alone, right? You feel so lonely. You felt like you couldn't talk to anyone about it because there's such a shame. There's a sense of, right, shame that associated with it, losing your children, and people don't get it, and you feel so alone. But really, it's the same story that many of us share, and many of us. So it's so important for parents to recognize that you're not alone. And hi, Jen. Jen is calling in from Sweden, and Villa Keys. I hope that I said correctly. Villa's Keys. Cynthia, hi. Thank you so much for tuning in. So anyway, Kevin was wondering how much is he's gonna share, and for me anyway, I want to know as much details as possible. What do you guys think? Do we want to have a brief and short version of this, or should we go as deep as possible? Let me know in the chat room. So anyway, Kevin, let's start with start any way you want. Let's start from the beginning.
Well, yeah, I wasn't an accidental father. I had kids when I was later in life, and actually, my wife and I had to go through in vitro in order to have kids. And so, people, the cost of in vitro, it's not something you take lightly. And we actually had to go through 3 rounds, $15,000 a pop, in order for her to become pregnant. And we actually, she became pregnant with twins. Okay, so we had boy-girl twins. Unfortunately, she had a lot of complications, and so the kids were actually born at 26 weeks gestation. So my son weighed 1 pound 9 ounces, and my daughter weighed 2 pounds. My son was 12 inches long, and my daughter was 13 inches long. My wedding ring went up my daughter's arm all the way up to her shoulder. That's how tiny they were, and so they were in the hospital for about 3 months. Until their actual due date, since they were 3 months premature. And then they came home at 4 pounds each. And now my wife was an airline pilot. So as soon as they came home, and this is a sign, you go back, in hindsight, I can look back and go, oh, these are signs that there was something not quite right. I mean, these 4-pound babies came home on apnea monitors, which would buzz every time they stopped breathing. And I had a full-time job, and she was an airline pilot. As soon as the kids came home, she went back to work. So she would fly away for 4 days a week, sleeping in hotels, when I have 4-pound babies waking up every hour on the hour, crying or hungry or needed to be changed. And it was super hard, but I took the job seriously. It meant a lot to me. And, I was proud of the fact that I just kept them alive. Every time those apnea monitors would go off, you'd have to run over and shake them and make sure they're still breathing. And, it was rough, but she would come home from a 4-day trip, and she would scream and yell at me that I hadn't dusted the house while she was gone. Those kind of things that you say, no, wait a minute, I'm keeping these babies alive, and you're upset that I didn't dust the house.
So this, I mean, talking about 3 round of vitro, that just tell you how much you wanted these children.
Right.
These are not just like, well, a one night stand and accidentally, oops,
Right.
I couldn't, well, she didn't want to have an abortion. Okay, now I'm stuck with it. It's not one of those situations.
No.
You really wanted these children, and it wasn't easy, and
No,
it wasn't cheap.
and I
Yeah.
took pride in the fact that I was a single dad. I would put these 5-pound babies, and I'd go to the grocery store by myself, or I'd actually take them to the movies by myself. And it's so funny that I've taken them to the mall just to get out of the house. And I can't tell you how many women would just run up to me and they say, "Are you okay? Do you need some help? Can I do something for you?" And in some ways I was a little offended, like, "Hey, I got it. I'm good. I'm a man, but I can still take care of these kids." But it was just amazing. I mean, strangers on the street outside, they would yell at me, "Hey, do you need some help?" I mean, I would just be rolling them in a stroller down the street. But I think seeing a man with 2 little bitty babies kind of
No,
freaked
I'm
people.
impressed. Because I have 2 kids, but one at a time, and even then it was exhausting. So I don't,
Yes.
and I mean, and I wasn't single at the time. So talking about you doing this by yourself with twin, that's
Yes.
crazy.
So I
Wow,
took
I'm
pride.
impressed.
Well, so that was my identity. And that's the honest, I didn't go into this to have kids and go right back to work and put them in daycare. I'm like, okay, if I'm having kids, I want to spend as much time with them. So I hope I don't get emotional, but that was my identity. Once these kids were born, I'm a dad. I have a job. Yeah, I have all these other things, but my identity is dad. And that's the most important thing to me. And, having to be fearful. Now, my son had and still has several medical problems because of being born premature. He has hydrocephalus. He had some contracted joints and problems with that. And so There was a lot of doctor's appointments, a lot of physical therapy, and so I think at one point we had 15 to 20 medical appointments a week. Again, my wife is gone. They had to have speech therapy, physical therapy, occupational therapy. They had to learn how to eat again. And my wife is gone 4 days a week while I'm doing this by myself. And then she would come back and scream at me about dusting and not vacuuming the house. So that's a sign. There was a sign there.
I
Fast
mean,
forward.
that's terrible. Like, what's going on? Why didn't you dust the house? I'm curious.
Well, I could dust the house, keep them breathing. I just,
I
I've
mean, priority.
I don't know.
So,
So
I saw a comment in Predec in the chat room. I'm gonna try to catch up with that in a little bit later. It's a little bit longer comment. Marianne, thank you, Marianne. I want to actually have a shout out to Marianne Petrie in the chat room. She's actually our narrator for the upcoming feature length documentary film called Parental Alienation: The Aftermath. And you guys, this film is gonna be. We have hush hush news that our documentary film is going to be premiere as the legendary Chinese theater in Hollywood in August. So anyway, I'm so super excited, and Marianne is going to be the narrator for that film. So thank you so much, Marianne. Okay, Tamara is in Australia, and she said the Father's Day in Australia is in September. But happy Father's Day to all the fathers. And thinking about all the fathers out there. So yes, yeah, happy Father's Day, everyone. It doesn't matter what's going on. It's the love in your heart that's really determined, and nobody can take away that role that you are a father, regardless of anything that's going on. So definitely, please don't don't feel like you have lost everything. As long as you have your love here, you will get your children back. Really, you can't give up that hope. And today is your day, so celebrate that. Ben, hi. I'm gonna get back to Ben comment in a minute, but okay, Kevin, let's just continue with this. Yeah, go.
yeah, and so after 2 years, I realized that this was not a working marriage, and so I left the house. I told her I was leaving, and I moved out to an apartment up the street. And again, there's signs. So the kids were 2 when I left. They're 15 now, boy girl twins. I left when they were 2, and there would be signs. Again, in hindsight, what I was dealing with. I learned that none of the clothes or anything that belongs to the children were actually the children's. My ex would always label them as her clothes or my clothes. And many times I would come to pick up the kids when it was my parenting time to begin, and she would send them out in clothes that were missing. So she would not let them wear the clothes that she purchased to my house. And I always had to bring over my own purchased clothes to her house and dress them in the car or in the house before I was allowed to take my kids. I would come over and she would say, "You owe me $10." And she would send them out without tennis shoes. I'm like, "Well, where are the shoes I just bought?" "Nope, until you give me money, you can't have their shoes." Coats, pants. One time she handed me both kids and they had nothing but a diaper on, no clothes at all. And so the biggest issue was it was winter, 34 degrees outside. I was picking up the kids for 3 days and I had just bought them brand new coats, and she sent them back out and said, "You owe me $15 and you don't get the coats until and this was like the 8th time that I had been given the kids without clothes. And so I made the mistake of walking into the house because I knew where the coats were in front of the kids. And at that point she jumped on my back. She screamed and yelled and the police were called.
And you broke into her house.
No, I walked into her house.
Well,
The garage door was open, and I
yeah,
needed
yeah,
to
but
come
you
in.
trespassed
Yeah, yeah,
into
yeah,
her
yeah, yeah, yeah,
house.
yeah. To
Yes.
get the coats because I was about to have another day of having to go buy brand new coats that just kept getting taken and kept until I paid her money. And so anyway, that became a huge. She filed a protection order. The police came and testified that she was the aggressor. Actually, when the protection order was dismissed, the policemen and people in the courtroom clapped after they heard the entire story of how this was handled. And so, but to this day, she called, my ex called the experience Scary Sunday, and she talks about it with the kids as if it happened a week ago, even though this was when they were 4, so 11 years ago. And yet she talks about, your dad attacked me and beat me up and abused me in front of these children. And that's the narrative that they've heard this for the past 11 years. Your dad is very dangerous. Your dad You know, I'm the youngest of 4 boys. My dad taught me never to hit a woman, and I've never hit a woman. And I didn't hit her. I walked in, she jumped on my back, and I left. I didn't do anything. So that was a sign that it was getting crazier. My kids would be bathing together. This is a painful issue at her house. When I got to be about 5 or 6, they tell me they were still bathing at her house. And I said to her, you know, they're getting older, and probably at this age, they shouldn't continue to bathe with each other. And she ignored me. If I say go right, she's going to go left just because I said go right. I said, you know, it's probably they're too old to bathe together. And she would not stop bathing them together. And then my children said that they were actually touching each other in the tub. And I called her, I said, you can't continue this. This is not normal for these kids to continue bathing together. She ignored me. They continued for months and months. I didn't know what to do. I called DCS and I said, what do I do to get my ex to have my children stop bathing together? They're actually saying they're touching each other. And they went over and they said they couldn't tell her not to do it. They just recommended she stop. But to this day, she has told the children that I've accused them of incest. She's told them that I've accused them of sexually molesting each other. So that's the narrative that's building, that's causing the beginning of the alienation is, you know, your dad is dangerous. You know, he physically attacked me and beat me. You know that he's accused you of molesting each other and incest. When my son was 6 years old in first grade, the teacher asked them to write a story about a time that made them angry. And then the teacher had some of the kids stand up in the classroom and read out loud their sentence they wrote. Okay, my son stood up in the classroom and he read, one time my dad made me angry because he cheated on my mom. He's 6 years old in the first grade. I never cheated on her. And that was and the poor teacher is hearing a 6-year-old child read aloud to the class that his dad cheated on his mom.
Oh my God.
And
That's just, oh my God. And I mean, this is so common though. And by the way, I just wanted to say thank you to Mary and Jen and TJ for sharing this video. Really appreciate you guys. And also Kimberly, thank you so much for sharing this video. And hi, Paul. We are practically neighbor. Paul is in Orange County. 8 years of alienation with zero contact for 8 years. And I see TJ said he has a 30 years old daughter, and he had total of 70 minutes in the last 24 years. It's horrible. It's shocking, these stories. Okay, so it's so common. You know, your father is, or the other parent is abusive to me, even though the alienator is aggressor. But yet this is projection. You know, it's what they do, they project on you. The abuse that they do, they blame it on you. So you are blamed for physical abuse, like if you're being blamed as a physical abuser, and then you're also being blamed for uh, cheating on her. So I want to clarify this. Okay, if you did cheat it on her, it's still none of the children's business. That's between you two. Has nothing to do with the children, and the children should not be dragged in between the parental conflict, between the adult problems. You know, is you don't go and tell your children that, oh, your father or your mother cheated on me. Like, to this day, I don't tell my kids about the cheating that was going on. I don't. You know, you can't do that. You can have a problem with your ex. That's fine. I mean, that's understandable. But you don't get to put the children in the middle of that. So so okay. So your children was being told that you blamed them for incest, for molesting each other, for attacking her, and now you just discover that there's also a cheating story. So there could be a lot more than that you never found out.
right. Well, but that cheating story was the narrative that she used to say that she kicked me out of the house. She didn't kick me out of the house. I left on my own. But I think, you know, I'm not a psychiatrist, but I think, you know, I don't think she could accept or live with the thought that the truth was that I left on my own. So instead, she had to create the narrative that she caught me cheating and she threw me out of the house. And that's why I became abusive. And that's why I was trying to get revenge by. So her solution, once DCS told her to stop having the kids bathe together, her solution was to put them in bathing suits and continue to bathe them together just to defy the DCS. So, because nobody was going to tell her what to do. So that was her remedy to them bathing together. So anyway, so fast forward a couple of years, and then again, we live in Memphis. She decided that she wanted to move to Miami to work. There's more opportunities for an airline pilot to move to Miami. Now, we had 50-50 custody at this point, and I had to file a motion to block the move, because if I didn't respond within 30 days, she was free to take the kids to Miami. So back in 2012, I filed a motion to block the move to Miami, which is what really exploded the alienation and the conflict and the legal battles and the legal struggles.
She wants to be able to do whatever she wants. She wants to be able to take the kids away from you and go and do her thing.
Right. So I objected. I hired one attorney. I will tell you, I mean, there's so much that transpired over those past few years. I had one attorney. She had 11 attorneys. Whoa. That she had to fire and get rid of, and they would disagree. So she went through 11 attorneys in this battle to stop the move. I went through one attorney, which speaks to her personality. I ran up $125,000 in legal fees to block the move. Fortunately, because we were able to show, I had 3 guardian ad litems involved, and the guardian ad litems were on my side. They saw what was going on. They testified on my behalf. That
why would you have 3? I don't understand.
The first one, the judge had never, the judge that we had for the first trial, the day that he was about to rule about whether or not she could move to Florida, this is not, I mean, literally while he was on the bench, he got a phone call, and he said, let me take a phone call. He went to the back. He came back out and says, I have to leave. Turns out the doctor had told him on the phone at that moment he had cancer. He got up and he walked out of the courtroom and quit. So we had to wait to have another judge elected several months later and start the whole thing over again. All right. Yeah. So we have a new judge who's never been a judge. He was a politician. He was elected the family court judge. We were his first family court case. The first guardian came in and she testified that I should have the children. The family psychologist said I should have the children. The judge said to the guardian, I don't know what guardians do really, so I'm going to go ahead and dismiss you from the case. And basically the judge said, I'll block the move, and don't talk badly about each other, and that's it. Well, the bad talking, the craziness continued. The alienation started getting worse with the disrespect and the challenging. It was always my son was, Dad, you're a liar. You cheated on my mom. You abused my mom. And
sorry, how old was your son at the time? Or your kids at the time?
8 or 9. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to, and I don't know if it's a mistake, but I kept saying, I'm not going to badmouth their mom. So I would just not defend myself. I would just say, no, that's not true. Oh, are you calling my mother a liar? Well, no, I'm not. I was doing everything I could to not badmouth their mother, because I would say to their mother, I said, look, these kids are half you and they're half me. If you speak badly about me, you're speaking badly about half of them. So, and she would deny, I don't speak badly about you. We never talk about you. Okay. So the first judge was gone. The second judge came in, dismissed the guardian. We were assigned a second guardian ad litem, and she saw everything that was going on. Now, this is going to sound very offensive, or perhaps offensive. I will just tell you throughout the story that every step of the way, the men involved in my court case, whether it's lawyers, judges, guardians, have not helped me. Every time a woman was involved, whether it was a woman judge, a woman guardian, a woman lawyer, they see it. They see what's going on immediately. And I just, and so that has been my experience. I was like, every time a woman gets involved, this stuff gets fixed. Men, I don't know why. I don't know if it's because my wife was an airline pilot, that the men kind of were impressed by her and was, impressed by her stature and her experience and success. But anyway, so the second guardian came in and she saw what was going on. And she was very, very supportive. Now, this judge who had never dealt with family law, he got to the point where he said that when the kids turn 12, that they are old enough to choose which parent they want to spend time with. Even though he says on paper it's going to say 50-50, but at 12, I think they're mature enough to choose which parent they want to spend time with. Now, at this point, my son had not come to my house in over a year, would not speak to me, would not come in the car, would cuss me out. And all the while, my ex was saying, I can't make him go. I can't make him come. I tell him he should go to your house, but I can't make him. Now, of course, if it was school or the dentist or anything else, she has the power to make him. So for her to say that she couldn't make him, I knew what was going on. So even though the court order said that I was supposed to have 50-50 custody, it wasn't being honored. We would go to court. Your Honor, this is not being respected. I haven't seen my son in 6 months. I haven't seen my son in a year. And nothing was done. And so when they turned 12, he said, well, they're old enough to choose if they want to spend time with you.
Sorry, hold on. I just wanted to comment on that. This is actually a very common tactic. Is alienators will withhold your custody despite the custody order. So on the paper, you might have your children for whatever amount of time, but very often alienators will just blatantly violate the court order. Now, in virtually all the states in the U.S., pretty much all the state, there may be some that are not, but most of the state in the U.S., it is a felony to be interfering with your custody. It's called custody interference. There's a criminal code for every state for custody interference. And we, on our website, there's a post where we post the code, the criminal code for each of these states. So if your state is not listed and you wanted to find out, let us know and we'll look it up for you. But this is something that is very common. I want to shout out to Claudia in the chat room. I saw her wishing parents for happy father for a happy Father's Day. But also Claudia is from Team Texas Team 2503, and this team is an amazing team that's on the ground helping parents with fighting for their children when they lose custody due to custody interference. And this has a lot to do with the fact that the law enforcement is either not aware or chose not to enforce this. And so when you have the situation where you turn up to pick up your child and it's your time and you don't get your children, a lot of the time you call the police and they say, well, I don't want to get involved. This is a civil matter. This is a teenager. This is whatever. Instead of trying to enforce what is the law, which is saying the other parent that is withholding the child is violating, and it's a criminal offense. There's a penal code for it, and a lot of the time you have to really you need advocates around you. And so what this team does is they go on the ground and advocates for these parents. And so for other places where you don't have the advocates ready for you, I want you to be aware of the code so that you can advocate for yourself. You have to put your foot down and really assert your right. Bring your custody order with you all the time. Get multiple certified copy of it so that you have one in the car just in case you forget, have one in the house, things like that. Make sure you have the electronic version for it because sometimes they might be okay with the electronic version, but really have the physical certified copy of it in the car as well as in the house and have it ready all the time. Definitely have it while you're trying to go and pick up your children, especially if you anticipate that your ex is going to be withholding your child. And then make sure that you don't let the law enforcement officer get away with saying this is a civil matter and they don't want to get involved, because it is not a civil matter, it is a criminal matter. And so that's something that a lot of parents are not aware of, and I wanted to make sure that you are aware of your right. It's not easy. I'm not saying that by putting your foot down the police or the sheriff is going to go and do their job. Unfortunately, a lot of the time they don't. But at least you know that you have right and you have to try. Sometimes parents just give up without even trying. So put an effort in and try. So anyway, I'm sorry for interrupting, Kevin. Go ahead.
Yeah, so that happened oftentimes. I would call the police and they would always say, I'm sorry, it's a civil matter. There's nothing we can do. There would be times when my ex was going on a trip for a week during my parenting time, and she would not give me the kids. She would hire a babysitter to live at the house rather than give me the kids. More than once, I would go to the house, knock on the door, and I found out later the babysitter, per my ex's instructions, would tell the children to hide in the house from me. And when she would tell me that she can't let me have the kids because my ex told her not to. Now, my ex is gone. It's my parenting time, and I got a stranger, a babysitter, hiding my children in my ex's house and not letting me have parenting time. And all the while, the police were saying, "There's nothing we can do. There's nothing we can do." And, you know, we'd go back to this judge who was a new judge, and we'd have all this evidence of this alienation. He finally signed a court order stating that he agreed that there was alienation and that my ex needed to stop or else she would face jail time, but it never stopped. And then again, it only got worse when they turned 12. So my son was an advocate for for his mom. So he was, I'm gonna, yell and scream at you on behalf of my mother. You are a terrible father. You're a terrible husband. My daughter was the peacemaker. Even though they were twins, they're very different. My daughter did not want to get in the middle. So she would honor the parenting time as much as she could. But the day the judge says they're 12, I'll let them choose, I didn't see my daughter again. A day. And of course, my ex is saying, "Oh, your daughter doesn't want to see you. She was only going because she thought she had to. But now the truth is she never wants to see you." And I lost my daughter that day. And that was 3 years ago. And that was in April of 2018. And I didn't see my son. I didn't see my daughter. And I'm just going to tell you what I did. I had to get on antidepressants. I don't drink alcohol. I don't smoke. I don't do drugs. But the thought of not being on the planet anymore was pretty good because, again, my identity was as a father. And now I can't see or speak to my kids. And I mean, I'm at work right now doing this interview, and I can't tell you how many times coworkers would come and say, "Hey, how are the kids doing?" I had no clue what to say. What do you say to explain to somebody who doesn't understand? I don't know how my kids are doing. I don't know. And so I didn't see my kids for 4 months. In August of that year, 2018, my daughter had a soccer practice. I went to the soccer practice. She would stay. She saw me. And I even brought our dog, the family dog, to the soccer practice with the hopes that maybe she would at least speak to me. When the kids would run laps for soccer, she would stop on the other side of the soccer field and not come close to me and run on the far side of the soccer field just to avoid me. But I didn't recognize her. I was like, I think that's my daughter, but she looked so different. Long story short is she went from 89 pounds to 62 pounds in 4 months. And so the guardian ad litem, the second one we had, I said, "This is not, something's wrong. My daughter is very, very sick. We need to do something." My ex would not take my daughter to the doctor, would not do anything. Turns out my ex was biking her for an hour in the morning, running with her for an hour in the evening, and they were only eating vegetables. So my daughter's heart rate got down into the 20s. Normal heart rate is in the 60s, I think, 70s. So with the guardian ad litem, we had to get a court order for my daughter to go see the doctor. And the doctor said my daughter had severe anorexia, had lost all of this weight, and they immediately put her in the hospital, the children's hospital here in Memphis. And she would not eat. So I'll get to more detail, but it turns out the stress, now my daughter's explained the stress of, the minute my ex told her, basically, "You're not going back to your dad's," she said she had this huge anxiety panic attack and didn't know what to do. And it manifested in stopping eating. So they said that she almost died because of the heart rate was so low. So she's now 62 pounds, 12 years old. She was 5'2", 5'3", and she looked terrible. I mean, I don't know if I'll send you pictures one day, but she looked terrible. So she had to stay in the hospital for several weeks while we found a treatment center for her to go for her anorexia. She never had an eating disorder. While she was in the hospital, my ex was observed by the nurses and the doctors hiding her food and throwing it away. Now, this is a kid that's trying to get more food so that she doesn't die. And my ex would take food on a plate and they'd bring her dinner, and my ex would take it down to the hall, say, I'm going to go heat this up. And she would come back and there would be half of the amount of food on the plate. She was seen, my daughter would secretly spit into cups and spit the food, and my ex would grab the cup and throw it away. So the security saw what my ex was doing, and then she was banned from the hospital completely. And all emergency medical care was then given to me. Now, my son stayed in my ex's care. I had to get my daughter to a treatment center. The guardian wanted a psychological eval of my ex, which my ex refused to participate in. And so once we got my daughter in a treatment center in Atlanta, they said that they would not allow my ex to participate in her treatment until she had her psychological eval. And she never would do that. And so although I live in Memphis, I was driving every week to Atlanta to take care of my daughter every weekend until she got better. All the while, I'm not seeing or speaking to my son. My daughter comes back in January 2 years ago. She was about maybe 95 pounds at this point, but we still had a court order. I only had control of my daughter for the medical issues. Now, before my daughter went to the treatment center, my ex filed a motion to block it, arguing that my daughter did not have an anorexia or did not have an eating disorder. So again, we had to have the guardian ad litem. We had to have the doctors from the Children's Hospital all testify that yes, my daughter actually has an eating disorder and needs this treatment. Even though my ex, now who's representing herself because she had gone through 11 attorneys, arguing that that it was all malpractice and that she was not having an eating disorder. So anyway, my daughter comes back and we still have a 50-50 parenting schedule. So I had no choice when we came back to Memphis, but to allow my daughter to continue going back and forth. My daughter even said the stress of the conflict, you know, was causing this eating disorder to get worse. Again, 3 months later, my daughter's losing weight again. I tried to co-parent with my ex. I say, she's getting sick again. We need to take her back to the doctor. My ex, I'm not taking her. If you take her, you're paying for it. I'm not paying for it. Of course, my ex didn't pay for anything for the 10-week treatment center in Atlanta. I had to pay all of that on my own. My daughter got sick again. My ex-wife would not take her to the doctor. I'd have another court order to take her back to the doctor. And this time they said she's sick again. She needs to go back in the hospital because her heart rate was so low. So we did the same thing. We put her back in the hospital. My ex was again observed hiding and throwing away food. My ex was again banned from the hospital, escorted out by security. We were moving my daughter every night to a different hospital room for fear that the ex would come back into the hospital and try to get her. We moved her to a treatment center in St. Louis. And again, my ex had no treatment of that, taking care of her this entire time. In the meantime, my ex has taken my son, who's got medical problems, to Miami for surgery, which is where she always wanted to move. So I've got one child in St. Louis with anorexia. I got another son that's in a hospital in Miami having orthopedic surgery. And then we go in front of the juvenile court about what to do regarding these kids. The judge was convinced because of how my ex had treated my daughter that both kids were in danger, medical neglect, because of how she had taken care of my daughter, and therefore my son was not safe in her care either. The judge ordered me to fly to Miami to get my son, gave me temporary custody. I flew to Miami, and then my ex and my son went on the run, and they were hiding. I had to have the police and the DCS in Florida help me try to locate them, because the court order said that she was not to have any unsupervised visitation. We couldn't find them. They were gone. So I had to fly back to Memphis and go back to the judge and says, we can't find them. All the while my daughter's in St. Louis. My ex then drives my son back to Memphis on her own, find the court order to not be alone. And she drives and goes straight to the courthouse to file a motion against me to say that I'm a bad dad. Now, while she's in the courthouse, they take my son into custody. They physically gave him to me that night and said, come back tomorrow and for the final custody hearing. Now, their witnesses are there, the guardian is there. We all go back to court the next day, and we walk into the court, and the judge orders my son to be in my care. And the judge, and then my son says, I need to speak to you one moment. So we all had to leave the had to leave the courtroom. And then my son says to the judge, my dad has been sexually molesting me every day, 3 times a week for the past 8 years. And that he is a drug dealer. And he said, if I ever tell anyone that he would murder me, my sister, and my mom. So now I'm accused of molesting my son for the past 8 years, every day, 3 times a week. And he apparently gave very graphic descriptions of what I was doing to my son. So according to the lawyers who were in the room, it was not credible at all, but I understood the judge's dilemma. She couldn't let a child say I'm being sexually molested and then say, well, I'm going to go ahead and just give you right back to this man. So now the judge has already said the mom can't be trusted because of medical neglect. Now we got a boy saying my dad's sexually molesting me. So at that moment, the judge said, I have no choice but to put these children in foster care. So that was kind of pushed me over the edge emotionally at that moment, to be accused of all of that. And now they're going into foster care. Now, my daughter was supposed to come back from St. Louis, and eating disorders is a lot of emotional component. And now she's got to go into foster care for something that she doesn't even know why. She doesn't even know what had happened. So she had to come back from St. Louis and go into foster care. My son goes into foster care, a separate place. In the meantime, the stress of all this, very, very stressful. I was diagnosed with incurable cancer. So I have non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and I do believe, they don't know for sure what causes it, but I do believe stress is a big component. So I'm dealing with this situation. So that was what happened 2 years ago, July.
Oh my God,
2019.
I have no idea how is it that you were standing? How is it that you're still standing? I don't I can't imagine. And this is the thing, the kind of things that are going on with alienated parents is it's horrific. It's beyond what there's no diagnostic condition out there that can appropriately describe what alienated parents are going through.
Let me
People,
add this. Let me
yeah.
just add this. The stress that had caused to me and actually my wife at the time, because of course my ex was going through our garbage every night and pulling out my medical information, my check stubs. I mean, she was going through our garbage at night. And the stress of all this, I find out during all of this, I find out my wife is also having an affair. My current wife was having an affair because of the stress. So, yes, I understand. I say I understand why men give up and just walk away when it comes to this kind of stuff. But I do think that antidepressants sincerely helped me get
Molly, yeah, Molly in the chat room was asking how old were the kids at the time that they
12.
went into foster care.
Oh,
12.
2 years ago. Yeah. So they were almost 13.
Yeah. And Predrag, I'm sorry, I never know how to say your name properly. I'm gonna say Predrag said that you're a very strong man, Kevin. Um, yeah, it's horrific. It's really horrific. Like just it's like the ultimate showdown, right? Like everything that could possibly gone wrong. Like both children in serious medical condition, and you got this court case that you thought was gonna coming together, and here you got accused of just the most horrific thing. You haven't even seen your son all these years, but you get accused of sexually molesting him every day for 3 times a week. And you've got cancer, terminal cancer, and your wife cheated on you at the same time, your new wife. I mean, like, what else? Did you get fired from your job? I mean, let's with your
No,
house on fire. Let's
no, the
figure out
house
what.
next the house next door did catch on fire. That did happen. The house next door did catch on fire.
It's your
So
fault, It's your stress that caused that. I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't, you know.
now, so what I did was I did go that day when my son went into foster care. I said I need some outpatient treatment, and so I would go to work every day, and in the evenings I would go to support group. for stress and anxiety. Now, again, because my ex-wife at the time was going through my garbage, she found the medical bill for going to treatment. And she sends my medical bill diagnosing that I'm going to treatment for stress as another sign that, so she told everyone that I was lying about the cancer, that I'm doing drugs and drinking again, and therefore, and I'm in treatment for drug and
Therefore,
alcohol addiction.
therefore, you're not a fit father.
Right. So that's been my, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. Like I said, I could spend hours, but so let me just say what I did. So I don't know. This is how I
No, don't cut
survived.
it short. Don't cut it short. We want all the information, right, you guys? Do we want to know all the details? We do, right? Because really, don't cut it short. We need to know your journey. And Melissa said, "Whoa, so sad. I'm so sorry." And Atlanta said, "Did you find that people didn't believe you and that your friends left you?" I don't know, what was your experience? What was your support network like back then?
I didn't tell anybody. I mean, where do you begin to tell people this story? So no, there was no one, friends or family. I couldn't tell my family. I couldn't tell my brothers. I couldn't tell my parents. There was, because there's so much, because here's the thing, even though I knew what was going on, I can tell you today, if somebody said, my kids aren't speaking to you, your first reaction is, oh, well, what did you do?
What did
To the
you
parent.
do? Yeah,
Right.
exactly. The first
And,
thing people think is that it's something wrong with this parent.
right. And so even though I understand alienation, the shame of, they may say they understand, but I think there's going to be a part of them that still questions whether or not, even my wife at the time, I have to, how do I defend myself that I've not been molesting my child 3 times a week for years? Because he gave I saw the testimony, it wasn't just general. He gave very specific. They had the police down in Florida, I did not know this at the time, have a secret call where they had him call me from Florida to accuse me, because he was still in Florida at the time, of molesting him. And so they put him on a phone call and he said, "Dad, why would you molest me?" Why? And of course, I'm like, what are you talking about? I would never do that. Here's the thing. The argument is that I molested him while his mother was in the hospital room with him at the time. That was the argument he made, that mom was in the room, but she wasn't paying attention. But my dad snuck into the hospital room after surgery and he molested me while the mom was in the room. And then his argument is, even though my kids shared a room, they had bunk beds, that I was sneaking in 3 times a week, molesting him while my daughter was also in the same room. And so that's why, his story is not credible. And so all the adults, I don't know if it's a good thing to say my son's a terrible liar, but he's a terrible liar, which in some ways made it easier for the adults to go, okay, we see what's really going on here. But at the same time, my son still believes everything he is saying. He still believes what he's saying.
Yeah, sorry. It's really crazy how these children are brainwashed. And so for parents that, and it's so hard for outside people to imagine, like, well, we're supposed to believe children. Children are innocent. So when they say something, you're supposed to believe them. But it's shocking. And you guys watched the interview that I did of Dr. Elizabeth Loftus, who is an expert in the field of false memory, and she show you her research and how easy it is for these alienators to brainwash, to distort memory, and to plant completely false memory in the children's mind. It's insane. It's so crazy. So this is shocking. Like, that gotta be this crazy massive room for your ex-wife, who is clearly sitting there watching out for you, and yet you had time to sneak in and
Yes.
molested your son in front of her. This got to
Right.
be a giant hospital room
Right.
for her to not.
It was the intensive care unit. So the
Oh,
window was open, where all the nurses and the doctors. So yes, all the nurses and doctors are going right past the room with the glass window, and my ex is in the room, and that's when I'm molesting him. Before all this happened, this is a sign too that my son, I asked him one time when he was still seeing me, I didn't do it in an angry way, but jokingly, I said, "Do you ever disagree or see anything differently than your mom ever?" And he was not trying to be funny. He said, "Yeah, I remember one time disagreeing with my mom." I said, "When was that?" He said, "The time we disagreed is when we were arguing about how long we thought you would go to prison, Dad." Out of the blue. I was like, "Prison?" Why would I? So I don't even know what I would have been going to prison for, but that's the argument they would have is how long dad is going to go to prison.
Well, obviously, you're a pedophile, so of course you're
No, this is
going.
before. No, this was before that all came out.
Oh no,
This,
you didn't see it coming, but they knew it was
hmm,
coming.
yeah, yeah. So anyway, so for the past 2 years, my son has been in foster care. My daughter, they both had forensic interviews, and they both said it's obvious that my son is lying. And my daughter supported that I had not done any of those things. So very quickly, my daughter came out of foster care. So my daughter has been in my home since July of 2019. Now, my son, this is DCS, said, obviously your son has got some serious mental health issues. We want him to see a psychiatrist or someone before we let him come back to your house. He stayed in foster care a year and 9 months, and he never saw one mental health session. He never had one mental health counseling session at all. He laid in a bed because of his physical problems. He laid in a bed and gained 50 pounds in the foster home, refused to speak to me, refused to speak to his sister. But there was a no contact order placed on him, even though he was secretly emailing and texting his mom because the foster parent would not police that. And so he stayed in foster care for a year and 9 months. My daughter came home 2 years ago. And my daughter, she now weighs 125 pounds. She's finished 9th grade, straight A student, honor roll student. She has compassion. She has understanding for what has happened to her and what happened with her mom. She's still under a no contact order. She has supervised visitation, but she hasn't wanted to really see her mom. I'm more encouraging of her trying to have a relationship than she is. And yet the irony is that the ex has not once tried to set up any visitation. In the 2 years that she's been with me, she's not once called the court or said, I would like to spend time with my daughter. Hasn't happened yet. So let me just say real quick that, back up just a second. What survived, what got me through all of that at the same time was that I kept saying, I'm not going to, my ex, fortunately the judge awarded me my attorney fees. So my ex was forced to pay the $125,000 in legal fees. Now, she refused to pay, so we had to file a motion to have her home auctioned off by the sheriff's department in order for her to satisfy the judgment, because she refused to do it. The day of the auction, 45 minutes before her house was to be auctioned off, she turned in the money of $125,000 to my attorney to pay off that judgment. So, but I got to a point where emotionally I thought I wanted to die. I didn't want to live. And I'll just say this. I went through, when I was in college, I had some problems with my parents. And I used to say to people that, I didn't think my parents were very good parents. And until they changed and admitted what kind of parents they were, I'm not going to talk to them. I'm not going to deal with them. And then after a year or so of not speaking to my parents, I kind of had an epiphany. And I realized that I could still be any kind of son I wanted to be, no matter what kind of parents they were. So somehow I got the idea to get my power back. And so I said, I could still be a good son without any expectations of what kind of parents they were or should be. And miraculously, they changed, and it turned into a really good relationship. And so that's kind of where I got to at this point with the cancer and my wife having an affair and my kids. And I just got to a point, I said, I'm not paying any more legal bills. So I said, I'm going to represent myself 2.5, 3 years ago. I said, I'm not, and my attorney is a friend of mine. I mean, we got to be friends after all this time. And she understood. I said, I can't keep racking up attorney bills. There's this thing's in, my ex has already appealed all these rulings. It's hasn't been heard yet in the Tennessee Court of Appeals, but it's pending. But I said, nobody can speak my heart as much as I can, and all I can do is just get up there and tell the truth. And so the minute I let go of my attorney, the minute I said, I'm not going to file any more motions to fight with my ex anymore. I think everyone knows what kind of father I am, what kind of person I am. and I have to let this fight go because fighting is going to literally kill me, literally. And so the minute there was this great relief of I'm not going to hire an attorney. I'm not going to pay any more money. If I get pulled into court by my ex over some aspect, I will go in and I will speak my truth. And I'm not going to try to win. There is no winning in this. It's just who's going to lose the most. And so I'm not trying to win. I don't, if and I tell my kids even now today, I say, I don't want you to be in my life because you have to be. I don't want you to be with me because a court says you have to be. I want to be someone that you choose. You're in my life because you want to be in my life. So I'm not trying to rip you away from your mom. I'm not trying to win. I'm not trying to do any of those things. So that peace, that's when things started happening very quickly. And I'm not saying that's going to happen for everyone, but there is no more, I'm going to get her, and I'm going to win this. And there's no celebration when I win a court motion or I get something, but continually as since that happened 2.5 years ago, I got my daughter back. Now I have my son back. My son actually came back. So 3 months ago, my son continues to deteriorate in foster care. Now he's gotten to the point where he can't walk anymore. And finally the judge says, oh, well, we need to get him some medical intervention. And my son is on the Zoom call because it's court, screaming that I've been molesting him, screaming that, he'll kill himself if he comes back to my house. He's not going to do it. And the judge said, I'm sorry, you're going back with your dad. So I had to go to the foster home. My son's in there screaming, wailing, screaming. We had to get 7 sheriffs to go into the room to say, you have to go with your father. You have no choice. You have to go. Now, he can't walk, so he's got to get out of his chair and get into a wheelchair. They finally got him to get in my car. The minute we drove away, he's a different person. There is no more accusations. He's respectful. He's laughing. We have a good time. He and his sister have a great time. They play games all the time. He and I joke. He and I go to movies together. We go out to eat together. He doesn't bring up his mother. He doesn't ask about his mother. He doesn't say, when can I see my mother again? And so, I've seen these videos where they say the change can be pretty immediate once that contact is cut off. And I have his phone and I monitor his phone. So I know every text message he gets, every email. So I know for the first time, he has 0 contact with his mother. And because of that, he's at peace. There's no more fight. We don't talk about court. We don't talk about fighting. We talk about school and we talk about movies and we talk about things that interest him. And he's not there all the way yet. Here's the thing. He can't say the word dad. It hurts because it's Father's Day. He says, well, you haven't quite earned, he doesn't do it disrespectfully. He says, respectfully, I don't know that I feel comfortable. I'm not sure you've earned the right to be called dad, which hurts. It makes me mad, but I don't respond because I know he's been through years and years of brainwashing that he really thought I was going to kill him, so I can't blame him for being terrified when one parent says your other parent is dangerous and may kill you. And then my daughter said today, because she knew I was going to talk about this tonight, I said, is there anything, having been through all this, that you think I should share? And she's very wise. And she just says, just make sure that those parents know that we weren't speaking for ourselves. She says, I was just a mouthpiece for my mom. And she said, I had no choice.
She's there? Can we talk to her?
No, she's not here right now. No. Oh, but here's the thing, but she would talk to you.
I would love to.
Yeah, she's 15. She's very articulate. But she said, my choice was either lose both parents. In her mind, she said, my choices were, if I don't do what my mom suggests I do, then I'm going to lose both parents. So my only choice was agree with my mom, believe my mom, and at least keep one parent, or don't agree with my mom and lose both parents. So she said, that was the lesser of the two evils, as I had to believe my mom.
Wow. Sorry, hold on. So Gabriel in the chat room said, yes, so people are very encouraging of your story. Molly said, we want to support you and be here for you. Jeremy said your story is important. And I know there's a lot more comments behind here. parenting, Hannah said parenting should not be a contest. Um, and Atlanta said that's a great attitude that you have. Um, and she's curious, are you still married? Did you forgive the affair? We'll talk about that in a bit. But and Rachel said it's so sad and ridiculous that the judges and everybody else let these things go on for so long while these children get mentally abused and traumatized. So okay, this is something that we talk about, and also we did an interview with a psychotherapist. If you guys check in our videos tab, you'll find where she talked about the bind, the the splitting that the children have to do. Like you said, your daughter explained that exactly, which is the child felt like they have to choose. They can't have both parents, so it's the splitting. So they have to be like one is an absolute bad and the other one is absolute good parent. And it's so crazy that the system, the judges don't get this. So with your case, it's amazing that the judge actually realized it, because sometimes the judge hears this threat of, oh, I'm going to kill myself if you force me going back. They don't realize, and they don't get it. So this judge is very brave to hear.
Woman judge.
Oh,
Thank you.
she, yeah,
Yes, I got
amazing.
a new judge. Yeah, so the woman judge is the one that figured it out quickly.
Yeah, and so even though your son was threatening to kill himself, she's no, I'm gonna and that's the thing, and that's exactly something that we talked in that interview earlier. You guys can check in our videos. Is that the moment that pressure is taken off the child, it can be relieved. The pressure can be relieved immediately, and the child can be coming back to the authentic self very quickly. And that's what you witness. That's what a lot of parents witness. We've seen that a lot. So that's amazing. And I'm so glad you shared this story, because this is exactly what we see in research, we see it in cases. And yeah, I think this is amazing. I'm sorry, please continue.
No, and I just want to say, because I do talk to some people about their who are in similar situations, and I know it's hard. And this is a long process. I mean, I don't know anybody who gets through this whole process, but from my experience and from what other people, again, I don't know whether you want to diagnose my ex with borderline personality or narcissistic personality, but they present themselves, as they say, as cool, calm, and collected. And us who are being falsely accused and not having our kids, we're emotional and angry and upset, which supports the narrative of I'm an unstable parent, all the while my ex is a. And so I had to flip that. I had to say, no, no, no. I cannot show my true emotions in front of a judge or in front of a guardian. I have to be cool, calm, collected. I can't be about winning. I can't talk about how crazy my ex is. All I have to keep saying is, this is what I think is in the best interest of the children. This is what I think is in the best interest, and leave. And then my ex will unravel. They will unravel as I stayed cool, calm, and collected. And I kept talking about what's in the best interest of my children. All the while my ex is saying that I'm a criminal, I'm a drug addict, I'm going to murder the family, you know, all that
You got to be. Where do you get all the money? I mean, you got to be a drug dealer. I don't know how you.
So
How
I'm
you
saying I think that being the cool, calm, and collected one caused her to unravel. And when I'm talking about best interests, while she's talking about what a terrible human being I am, the lawyers and the judges and the guardians, they pick up on that. And I guess that would be my encouragement to people is, if you can figure out a way, whether it's through therapy or antidepressants, to not let these authority figures see you as unstable and emotional and angry and blaming and saying how crazy your ex is, because then it becomes two people calling each other crazy. And then the judge just goes, okay, you two people just can't get along. No, this is not about two people who can't get along. And so, but if I kept saying, well, this is what I think is in the best interest of the kids, isn't it in the best interest of the kids that X, Y, or Z? And so I think that helped my case a lot. And
That's
so,
amazing. And we see this a lot. Like exactly what you said is that people don't get this, and they look at this and they go, oh, this is two adults, they hated each other. These are the exes fighting, and so they don't want to get involved, or when they do, they look at this the wrong way, and everybody forget that this is about the children. So while you're focusing on the children, you're doing like exactly the right thing. And you show yourself as being this good parent that's supposed to be. And it's very interesting because Claudia in the chat room knows this, and our team in the last week, we were literally doing our, building up our step counts at the Capitol building in Texas. We were like going through so many offices, talking to all these legislators about parental alienation, about how this is about children. This is not about the parents. This is not about the parents' conflicts. This is not just two exes kind of duking it out. And it's not that. What we care about is the children. There's a lack of any kind of resources or recognition in the protection of the children. We've been talking to the Supreme Court Children Commission about this, and they're like, well, these are two parents. And we're like, no, no, no. This is about the children. And it's we need to change this. And they listen to us, and then at the end they go, oh, what you guys are doing is you are pushing for a paradigm shift in the way we're looking at this. And they actually said, you guys are pushing for a paradigm shift to get people to recognize this is child abuse instead of parent conflict. And this is where it has to be, you guys. This is exactly where we need to focus on. We need people to recognize this is child abuse. This is not about child support. This is not about parents winning. Nobody's winning here. It's the children that are getting damaged. So anyway, I'm so glad that you're focusing on the right thing. And what you mentioned earlier is exactly what Dr. Stephen Miller described, which is alienators will always, they are master manipulators. So they will come across as confident, calm, and collected, and cool, and all that kind of things. And then in the meanwhile, the alienated parents is like agitated, emotional, and unstable, and all that kind of things. And then you end up with the situation where you confirm the false narrative that the alienators are doing. You can't do that. So you have to focus on your emotional well-being. Very important, because a lot of parents we work with, they fighting in court, and they spend money on the lawyers, and they try to look at all these legal cases, and they're not taking care of themselves mentally. You go to court, you're going to get dragged through the mud. It's just the worst thing possible is going to be said about you. And if you are not calm and collected, you're going to lose it like that. It doesn't matter how much money you spend on your lawyers. If you are not strong enough to hold it together, this is going to be over so fast. And Destiny, hi, thank you so much. It's great to see you again, Destiny. I love seeing you in the chat room. And she said, yeah, it is child abuse. It's yeah, it's so true. So anyway, for alienated parents, it is so important to recognize is that you need to get support. You either get it out there in the professional realm, like get your therapist or psychologist or whatever, or get the support groups, or build your network of support around you physically, your family, your friends, wherever that it is that you can get it. But you need to have the support that you need, because you need to be out there for your children with a strong face, and you need to fight for your children calm, cool, collected, all the things that you need to be. You need to be the safe, available, and loving parent. So all the breakdown that you are experiencing, it's horrific, but you need to get the support somewhere else. Don't put that on your children. Don't express that to your ex. Don't bring it to court. You have to get, and I know it's really unfair and it's really rough, but it's amazing, Kevin. I don't know how you do this. Please continue.
No, and so as far as, someone had asked how things are going with my current wife. I don't talk about this stuff with my kids. They don't know that happened. And, so yeah, again, go back to my emotions. The ego and was hurt that this had been going on for 2 years with my wife having an affair. But my wife is very, very good with these kids, and these kids really respect her. And so I had to once again go, okay, what's in the best interest of my kids? And they'll be sophomores. They'll be getting out of high school in 3 years. And so, today, I can just speak for today. So today still, I believe what's in the best interest of my kids is the stability. I've gotten one kid out of foster care, and I just got my other kid out of foster care 3 months ago. And so, my current wife knows that this is not okay. We're respectful, we're cordial, but the kids don't know anything. And so for the security and the stability right now, I've chosen to keep the family intact. And then in 3 years, we'll see what happens once the kids go off to high school. But I've come this far to try to keep my kids emotionally safe and healthy. And right now, I'm able to be friends with my wife. We all sit down, we have dinner together every night, and I've got both my kids back, and we talk about our day. We don't talk about court. We don't talk about their mother. We laugh. We play card games. We have pizza. And so for now, my kids need stability, and I'm willing to do what I can to keep them stable for 3 more years until they get to college.
It's never over, is it? Like
No,
parents always think that, oh, I want to get my kid back, and they think that they look at that as a destination. The day that
no.
you reunite with your children is the beginning. It's the beginning of a much longer journey. The journey of healing takes a lot, and it's not going to be easy either. So a lot of parents think, "Oh, I'm trying to fight to get my kid back," and they think, "Well, that's it," and they don't realize how much more work still ahead. But it's worth it, you guys. It's
Yeah,
really worth it.
my daughter, I mean, we're working through, I mean, she had to be in therapy for her eating disorder. She had to be in therapy for all of this. I mean, and even today, she'll say that she doesn't trust her own ideas, her own judgment, her own choices, because she was taught by her mom that, those are always wrong. And it's too scary to make a wrong choice. And so both her and her brother always have been used to deferring to their mom. Like, I don't know what ice cream I want, you tell me what ice cream I want. And so now they're having to learn it's okay to pick what ice cream you want. I'm not going to get mad. There's no wrong choice. And so, but it's in so many different areas, learning to trust themselves and have their own thoughts and their own opinions is something that's very foreign to them.
Yeah, so that speaks to the pathological enmeshment, right? The codependency that alienated children have is the alienators look at the children as property, as their property. So the children are not independent people. Alienators look at these children and don't allow these children to be themselves. They're just extension of the alienators. Alienator thinks, oh, these are my property. I choose, I decide, and anything that going on with between you and them is what going on between you and the kids. They put this all on the kids. And so the kids, and there's a lot of research out there that show the psychological impact on these children for the long term. And codependency is definitely one of those things. Lack of self-esteem. And then they then end up dependence on drug and alcohol. To get into those substance abuse, and then you go into seeking the wrong kind of approval, so they end up in abusive relationships, cycles of abusive relationships. They end up with criminal activities because they're seeking a validation in the wrong places. We have so many problems with these children, and so really it is a form of very serious form of child abuse, and yet we don't get this recognized out there, and it's ridiculous. And there have been research that show that this form of abuse is just as serious as sexual abuse and physical abuse. And we do have the system work really hard to try to protect children from sexual and physical abuse. And yet, somehow, we completely ignore this psychological abuse part of it. And it's so crazy.
And it's scary though to find therapists. I mean, I'm honest. I'm having a hard time even in Memphis finding a therapist who understands alienation, because the last thing they need is to go in and have my sons believe that, oh yeah, my dad molested me, and a therapist say, oh, tell me more about that, and validate how awful it was for my son to be sexually molested by his father, because that's what therapists I think normally are trained to do is, well, I'm going to just validate your feelings and say you're right, which would be the worst thing that my son needs right now, is someone to validate his perspective. And so finding a therapist who understands this is not easy.
Yeah, we did an interview with Dr. Stephen Miller. So if you guys haven't seen it, it's an amazing, amazing, incredible interview. So watch out for that video if you haven't seen it. But he spoke exactly to this about why traditional therapy does not work for alienation. You need to find somebody that actually understands parental alienation and knows how to deal with it. And when you get the wrong kind of therapy, it can cause a lot more damage than doing any good to your children. So that's so true. Question, you guys, what do you have for Kevin? I mean, I see a lot of comments in the room, but yeah, go on, Kevin.
Oh, that's it. That's all I wanted to share
Okay,
for now. So today,
you
yesterday
are
was
you're
today. I
very
have both
brave.
my kids. Today I have both my kids. There's no conflict. There's no fighting. We play. We laugh. We tell jokes. We play games. And so, again, there's an appeal coming. My ex is appealing. I don't even know at this point what she's appealing. There's a no contact order on both of them. Only supervised visitation for my daughter. My son has no contact and no supervised visitation ordered. And again, I don't know what's in store for future court dates, but I don't care. I'm not going to fight. I'm not going to file a motion. I'm not worried about court. I'm just going to tell my truth and try to stay as calm and peaceful as I can.
Yeah, so Laura in the chat room said that the majority of the therapists are clueless about parental alienation. Okay, so question for Kevin from Predrag. I'm so sorry, I really don't know how to pronounce your name. Okay, the question is, how is your health now? Your cancer. Is it okay to ask such a personal question?
Yeah, I'm an open book. Unfortunately, the cancer is not curable, so I have not done any chemotherapy or anything. And so I'm trying to keep it at bay with exercise and diet and low stress. And I'm serious about that. I mean, in some ways, I had to get diagnosed with incurable cancer to get to a point of acceptance and saying, I can't live in this fight anymore. I can't continue to live in this conflict. But it gave me the freedom to say, you know what? I've got incurable cancer. I'm not going to let this stress me out today. And so I'm going to just try to stay, as round as long as I can. Again, I'm not doing any chemotherapy because it wouldn't cure it. And so I don't want to spend time sick and throwing up. And again, I've got 3 years left before they go off to college. And so I'm hoping I can enjoy the time while I have them.
Wow. Wow, that's crazy. Um, yeah, you have a lot. I don't know how you do it. Yeah.
I see a therapist. I have a therapist, and I take Lexapro.
Wow. Wow, that's so much. That's so crazy. That's a lot. And so I guess it changed your perspective and you learn to appreciate moments, right?
And
And
to stop the fight. I mean, I even have friends that are in support groups who they come to me and they say, I want to tell the judge how crazy she is. Look what she did. Look how crazy that. And that's staying in the fight and trying to prove that your ex is crazy. That is not what you have to do. Talk about the best interest of the kids. Talk about the best interest of the kids. Stay cool, stay calm, scream and yell at your therapist, punch things, but in front of people who are watching you. And that's the other thing that sucks. We have to be 100% perfect as parents. Any little thing we do wrong, the exes are going to use and try to paint us as the worst person on the planet. So it's not fair. They break all the rules and don't feel like they're being held accountable. We make one mistake and the world hears about it. So
yeah, Destiny said miracles happen every day, and she said, God bless you, Kevin. And Roy said, keep strong, brother. And Predrag said, Kevin, you will have my prayers. I feel a bit embarrassed talking about my story when I hear yours and compare the two. Not that such comparisons are the way to go for any of us. Okay, guys, yeah, this I see a lot is victims will often go, well, yeah, I'm in a horrible situation, but really it's not that bad compared to other people, right? You cannot compare pain. You cannot compare suffering. What I think is really incredible is Kevin chose not to suffer anymore. He chose he chose to not suffer anymore. And it takes a lot of courage, it takes a lot of strength to stay calm in the situation, and that's the power, right? You don't give the power to the alienators, you don't give the power to the chaos.
somebody
You
told me, yeah, somebody told me to be like water. My ex is rocks and I was a rock doing this. And somebody said, just become water. And so I'm just water over the rocks now. And that's been very helpful to calm me down and to not get them. I get scared sometimes. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I still have the police called to my house for wellness checks and that can cause a little anxiety, but as far as butting heads, I'm just water now.
so
And
other
I
than
got
the
my kids back.
yeah, so other than the therapist, who else do you call when you get really down and you feel like giving up?
My therapist. I don't talk to a lot of people about this again because they can't
Wow.
understand, and there's just so much. I talk to other people. I have a couple of good friends in the support group who are going through this as
Yeah.
well because nobody else understands it. I mean, I don't know that we can really. I think we need to lean on each other more, because nobody knows what this feels like unless you've been through it. I mean, even my current wife, I mean, she wants to be supportive and understanding, but it's not her biological children, you know? And every once in a while she would get an insult from my ex and she would get really upset. I'm like, I get 100 of those a day, you know? But her one, and so I think if you can talk to other people who are going through this, they can help us the most.
Right. Yeah, that is so true. And this is why actually this is why parental alienation is not only child abuse but it's also domestic violence, because it is the form of, post marriage family violence, because it creates with malicious intent to create harm on you, to create sufferings on you. And a lot of parents suffer from PTSD, complex form of PTSD. But really, I mean, what you said about how, I just want to die, that's exactly what happened to a lot of parents. They just give up and they ended their lives. And it's really horrific. And for the system that doesn't recognize this, it's really, really outrageous. And we have a lot of work to do, you guys. So Ben really loves the analogy that you gave about water, and he said, "I will be water." So Ben, yes, that's definitely the way to go. Paul said, "I have been saving lives for 35 years, and I wasn't able to save my own daughter from this abuse." That is that's really heavy pull, and I totally get it. I totally get it. I understand. I'm not just saying it lightly. To feel hopeless and helpless when you are there, you're someone that is doing things, you're making a difference, and yet you can't help your own child from this. It's horrific. The sense of helplessness is really it's really hard. I get it. And so I love the suggestion, Kevin, about look seeking out for people that understand you, people that going through what you're going through or have gone through what you're going through, so that you can get the support. That is so important. So for people that doesn't know, we do have a support group on Facebook. It's called Parental Alienation Victims Support Group. So if you're not already a part of that, feel free to join that. We have an amazing team that is moderating that group. I actually don't watch the group because I don't really have time. But from what I could see, the team's doing a great job at moderating that. And we saw Rachel and Claudia in the room. Chris also amazing at helping other parents. So feel free to reach out in that group. We also have a mailing list on victim2hero.com website. So please join the mailing list. I know we also been kind of not sending out enough emails to notify you guys of events and things like that, and I apologize, but we will try. So if you don't want to miss important things, please do join the mailing list, and please share this videos. Okay, let me see. Is there any last thought before you go? Is there something else that I should ask, or anything else you think parents should know? Anything from your daughter, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, she has figured it out. And the thing is, I want her to still have compassion, because this is just my personal belief. I don't think people are bad or evil. I think people are either sick or healthy. And without talking about, I don't describe her mother to her as an evil, terrible person. I don't know what happened to her mother in her childhood or what happened in her life that caused her to be the way she is and to make the choices that she made. And so I want my daughter to still have compassion and still have empathy for her mother. And, and her mother's going to do what her mother's going to do. And my daughter is, even though I'm encouraging her to, I always tell her it's good to have, loving relationships from as many people and support from as many people who care about you as possible. But it's up to you at this point. If you think you can handle it, then by all means. And if you don't, that's okay too. But fortunately, so far, she hasn't gotten to a point where she's angry. She has compassion and empathy for her mom, but she also chooses to not spend a lot of time with her mom right now. And maybe that will change.
So Destiny said you're a special person, Kevin, and God bless you. And Cliff, hi, thank you. Cliff is saying thank you. So thank you so much for being a part of this. I think I think Frederick said, "You are right about it. As a wiser than me friend explained my ex, she's a severe damaged person, which is almost certainly true, as in think damage, not evil. The $1 million question is how to deal with it, as in how to deal with it wisely. Yeah, I think this is the challenge. Is a lot of parents will get um, how do you describe it, because they're in so much pain, and so they spend a lot of time focusing on, oh, my ex is evil, my ex is narcissistic, my ex is borderline, my ex is bipolar. And like Kevin was saying, that was not a productive conversation, in court or outside of court, really, because there's not much you can do to control somebody else. This person is no longer a part of your life. That's why they are the ex. And yeah, I think the question about how to deal with it wisely is really important. And so I think some of the things that Kevin mentioned is, be the water. Try not to just butt head with this person, and instead of um, figuring out how to get around it, how to not respond. Um, there's this thing about that's called the gray rock method. How to not react. You just have to respond when you must respond, because you're no longer a part of this person's life. So you're not friends, you're not anything. So don't give them the power over how you feel. Your relationship is over. You now take over the power. You're in control. So don't give them that power to be able to just press your buttons anytime they want. Don't let that happen. So that's definitely a big part of it. There's other things, and like how to get the support network. That's another way of how to deal with it. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that we talk about through different kind of videos in this program. But yeah, anyway, thank you so much, and everyone, please help share this and like I said, join the mailing list, and we see you guys soon. I know that we haven't posted a lot of new events coming up, but we have a lot of events planned out. We just haven't got a chance to post it because I've been traveling. But yeah, join the mailing list, and then we'll notify you guys of a lot of events that we have coming up. So thank you so much. And Kevin, really appreciate you. You really deserve this Father's Day. You fought so hard, and everyone else out there, you guys, you are the father no matter what. No one can take that away. So today is your day. Happy Father's Day, and really every other day, whether you get to have your children or not, you are the father, you are the parent. So don't let anybody, there's no one that can take your children away here, from your heart. Doesn't matter what happened out there, and don't shut the world out. Allow other people to be a part of your life so that they can support you. I'm not saying to just allow anybody. You do have to be careful about who you allow, but you need that support. Don't fight this alone. You are not alone.